and welcome back everyone to the Down Under broadcast of the 11th Annual Access Global Bars class. Sorry, Global Bars Day. The Bars class is tomorrow. My name is Sarah Watt. We're about to wrap up the broadcast here from Australia, and I'm so honoured to have been a part of this. I've cried, I've laughed, we've had such an amazing time here, and some of these stories that we've seen and the interviews that we've had have just been truly miraculous. And our next guest, the last special guest of the evening, is Miss Shannon O'Hara. Welcome, Shannon. Thank you for being here with us. She is the creator of Talk to the Entities. She's written multiple books. She's been an access consciousness facilitator for 23 years. So one of the OG facilitators, one of the people that started and were here from the very beginning. Thank you so much for joining us, Shannon. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Can you see me, hear me? Oh, there we go. Now I see that. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. So where would you like to begin tonight? What would you like to talk about? Our segment is called The Unseen Key to Mental Health, which is a big topic. I mean, yeah, mental health in this world is something that. So I would love to hear what you have to say about this, what you know and what you're aware of.
Well, I want to say first of all that this is my absolute favorite Global Bars Day so far yet. So all of you guys who have been creating this, like, wow, I have literally not wanted to miss a single second of this since it started. I've been on since you guys started. I love this, and hello to everybody out there in the universe watching this, whether it's right now in this moment or whether you're seeing this in the future. Like, how does it get better than this? Like, how powerful is ease, joy, and glory? So the topic that we sort of chose, the unseen key to mental health. I mean, when Emily contacted me about being part of Global Bars Day, I was like, I don't really know what to talk about. She's like, why don't you talk about entities? I was like, can I do that? So I thought that would be cool. Like, I'm going to do that. So
it's happening.
One of the things that definitely started happening for me, like, if you were here maybe an hour and a half ago, you would have seen like a pretty long video with me and Dane talking about his first bar session. And I rarely tell the story of my first bars experience, but I'm going to tell you now. So Gary is my stepdad. And my mom and I moved to Santa Barbara when I was 5 to live with him. And he started, like, access when I was 12. And I was, like, used in the classes that he was facilitating as, like, an extra head, just because he needed to have, like, another body there. So I was in those first bars classes, and I can vividly remember the first time I had my bars run. I fell asleep through the whole thing, and I'm doing air quotes, fell asleep, because maybe you guys can relate to that sort of space and place you go when you're having your bars run, where you're sort of asleep, but you can hear everything, and it's not really like sleep, but it's like really powerful and deeply relaxing. So I went there. I came back, when my bars were done, and I sat up, and I went to put my feet on the floor to get off the table, and I like fell over because my whole reality had shifted so much that all my proprioception had to readjust to the new world. Fast forward, I was not even a teenager at that point. I became a teenager soon, and Gary kept going with access, and I didn't want to do it because it was like the weird stuff my dad was doing. But as I got older, I was having more and more and more, I guess, what we would call today like mental health issues. I was extremely depressed. I was extremely angry. I had deep social anxiety, like debilitating social anxiety, and I wanted to kill myself. And Gary kind of like tricked me into getting my bars run, thank goodness. And I guess somewhere in my world, like I did want to feel better. So I had my bars run by different people here, there, and everywhere, and over time, like I started getting happier and happier. And I decided that I really wanted to be more committed to access because of the way it made me feel. I was like, I want more of this in my life, So I became like a, access facilitator to have access more. fast forward, I'm about 20 years old and I'm in my apartment in Southern California, and I come out one day and my living room was tiny, but I could literally not see the other side of the room because there were so many entities in my house. And I knew it was entities, but I had no interest. I went into total reaction. I was like, this is scary. I hate this. I called my dad. I was like, oh my God, help me. My house is so full of entities, make it stop. And he was like, that's great, honey. He was really being positive about it. And I was like, no way. I don't want to be a freak. Like, I don't want to be a freak that talks to ghosts. And so I slammed the entity awareness door shut. And over the next 3 months, my life just got progressively harder and harder. I was not feeling well. I couldn't get clear about anything. Nothing was really working. And I was out at my parents' house having dinner one night, complaining to my dad about my life. And he said, well, what did you refuse to do? Oh, I refused to talk to the entities. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I realized that talking to entities was actually one of my natural gifts and capacities that, if I said yes to, could potentially make my life greater and easier and better, even though I had every reason to judge that talking to entities would make me weird and wrong and crazy, etc. So I said yes to entities. Fast forward, 2 decades later, we have an incredibly robust life-saving curriculum of Talk to the Entities. That's basically the education that you should have been given about ghosts that you never were given. But one of the points of this story is that bars made me more of me. It took away all of the barriers to everything that I was. It started giving me greater access to me. And part of who I be is entity conscious. And so the entities really showed up because I had removed all of my resistances to entity awareness that I had built up strategically, most of my life, to not be that different. And that's one of the great gifts that the access bars be, is that they give us greater access to who we be. And sometimes we become more aware. Well, always we become more aware. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate and I have learned to value about access, is that the tools, bars included, increase awareness. And is awareness something that we have been educated about? Were you empowered, educated, taught, what all the stuff that you were aware of when you were a little kid was? How many of you guys, knew there were ghosts in the closet, or, saw the spirit of a deceased relative, or had entity awareness and went to a parent or went to a grandparent or somebody and were like, hey, check this out. And then they told you that it wasn't real or wasn't true or couldn't be so, or you're wrong, you're stupid, you're crazy. So we essentially get miseducated about awareness, which really then just leads to us making ourselves wrong ad infinitum, which is exactly what Sarah and Brendan were discussing in the previous segment. What if you're not wrong? What if you're not even wrong if you talk to ghosts, So it's what is it that you have access to that you maybe haven't acknowledged or were never allowed to admit that you saw or heard ghosts? Now, this conversation is definitely not for everybody. This is not now that you have had your bars run, now you're going to talk to entities. That is not what this is. But those of you guys out there who do have entity awareness, this might be more for you. It is my firm belief that everybody is aware and everybody has the capacity to perceive all sorts of cool stuff, including entities. However, there are some people who it is sort of more imperative that they work with the entities, for if they don't, it can turn into a huge array of mental health problems. And that's what I was really experiencing in my repression and suppression and rejection of entity awareness. It mutated into depression, anxiety. I mean, when I say anxiety, I mean borderline panic attack all the time when I had to deal with people. And that's unfortunately too familiar of a story for us these days on planet Earth. And what if so much of what feels so hard in your day-to-day life experience could be easier if you acknowledged that you're having awareness, not automatically presuming that there's something wrong with you. So what like awarenesses have you had all your life that you've never been able to explain, that you've really not been able to tell people about, but that you've had? And if you stopped using energy against those awarenesses, I wonder who you could be and what you could create that's beyond your ideas of what's normal, average, real, and the same as everybody else. One of the cool phenomenons that bars contributes to is greater awareness. And that might mean that you're going to become more aware of everyone else's points of view. You're going to become more aware of the insanity in the world. You're going to become more aware of the beauty everywhere around us. Become more aware of the gift and the magic of possibility that consciousness is being everywhere all the time. You might become more aware of entities. You might become more aware of a capacity that you have that no one's ever taught you about. What cool capacities do you have, do you be, that you could stop making into an enemy and start making into a playmate for greater possibilities? So I have about 14 minutes left, and I think I'll just give a really condensed, very introductory taste of some of what I would consider to be the go-to like entity ease tools. So if this is you, if you can relate to this, if you have been aware of entities and not known how to deal with it, here we go. So believe it or not, dealing with entities can be pretty practical. There are 4 functions that I suggest you put your attention on with entities. The first one is clearing entities. The entity clearing access tools is in the Access Foundation manual. So it's in the manual. You learn it right after the bars class. Probably many of you tuning into Global Bars Day to Day have done the foundation class, and if you haven't yet, please know that there are some epic tools in that manual, some of which are the entity clearing tools. So there, believe it or not, are many entities who don't even realize that they don't have bodies anymore. It was something I was shocked to discover, because I assumed all this stuff, which is that if it was an entity, it was really powerful, or it knew more than me, or it was like really conscious, or all this stuff, which didn't actually match the reality of there are many beings who step out of their bodies on drugs or in a traumatic experience that actually don't realize that they don't have a body anymore. So when you learn the entity clearing tools, you're actually assisting them in having another choice. And it is phenomenal how easy you can affect change and clearing by using those tools. So if you know the entity clearing tools of Access, like, please remember you have that tool. I say a lot of times, like, the majority of the entities that you're going to run into in life simply just need to be cleared. And that is absolutely one of the easiest ways to create really dynamic change when and if you are in fact dealing with entities. So you don't need to be in reaction to the entities. You don't need to make it a big deal. I mean, you can make it significant, but it mostly will just hurt you. And recognizing, like, wow, you are this gift, that you can actually be a gift to the spirit world too by, number one, saying hello, when most people ignore ghosts, one of the questions I ask people right up front is like, would you like people to treat you and to think about you after you die the way that you think about ghosts now? So it's like, there are so many beings who basically get ignored by us. And when you are willing to say hello and be present with them, it is a gift. And it's a building block for a new reality. The second thing that you do with entities is communicate with them. Now, this becomes, the complexity increases here a bit because we have to question your definition of communication. Like, what do you think communicating is? And how many of you guys misinterpret or block entity communication because it doesn't look the way you think it should? Whether you saw something in a movie or you presumed that talking to an entity should look and feel a certain way, it's like, is that actually the way that it works? Or are you capable of communicating with entities in ways that you potentially have never considered are possible because they're really fast or really easy or don't have as much form, structure, or linearity to them? Talking to entities definitely made me increase my psychic muscles and definitely facilitated me in becoming more flexible in what I was willing to allow into my universe. So that can be easy for some and more difficult for others. Nevertheless, it is something that all of us have the capability to be. And if you want to know what talking to an entity could be like, perceive trees. Are trees communicating? Are they communicating with words? Or is there an energy that you're aware of? So that's a bit of a hint about what talking to entities could be like. Less mind, more energy. Less logic, more possibility. And then comes the superpower of receiving. And I was doing talk to the entities for many, many, many years. And I one day accidentally stumbled on the reality of receiving from entities. I remember I was doing a talk to the entities beginning class, and there were these mega beings that showed up, and they wouldn't clear. I couldn't really work out how to talk to them. And they were just so present and so persistent and so big. And I didn't really know where to go with that until I realized that they wanted to gift to me. And they were there to contribute to the expansion and growth of consciousness and to essentially care about me. And I was like, whoa, all these entities have just been waiting for me to receive, to perceive them and to receive. And frankly, I believe that that's the secret sauce of Talk to the Entities, why it works so well and expands so dynamically, because there are many entities who desire for that for it to expand and to work in the world, and for all of you guys to have more ease, more tools, and more consciousness dealing with the spirit world. And then the fourth aspect of the Talk to the Entities tools is cooperation. And this is the advanced stuff. This is the stuff where you actually start working with entities in a productive way to create a new reality. And wherever you are in your awareness journey, whether or not you want to talk to entities, because I'm realizing some of you guys listening to this are probably like, this is freaking me out, or this is weird, or I don't want to go there. I totally get it. And for those of you guys that are listening to this being like, wow, yeah, like I really need these tools, or yeah, like clearing entities has really created like so much change for me. Like imagine now that like we will look back on this time as like the dark ages of awareness, when people didn't even acknowledge the entities like standing next to them. What would a conscious world be like? what awareness would you have to include to be more conscious? You know, I love the definition that Gary gives of consciousness. Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. And what would a world look like where we included all beings and judged none, including you? What if you didn't have to even judge you? What would and could a conscious world be like? And I don't mean like fantasy, I don't mean fairy tale. I mean like what contribution are you that you've never acknowledged? And what gift can you be? I think it's okay with the sun. It is what it is. I'm in England right now, and we were just having the darkest, rainiest sky. And of course, now that I'm talking to all you guys on Global Bars Day, the sun is coming out. So who and what gifts are being given? Who and what desires to contribute to you and all of us in the expansion and growth of consciousness? And what if you're not crazy if you hear voices? What if you're actually aware if you hear voices? And like one thing to note is like, if you are literally hearing voices, that's entities. If you ever, the vocabulary, I'm hearing voices, like when you think I'm hearing voices or you say I'm hearing voices or somebody says I'm hearing voices, what they mean is I'm hearing entities. And that's awesome. Like, congratulations. Like, you're so aware. So what tools can you use? What could you create through the tools of clearing, communicating, receiving, and cooperating, and a huge helping of interesting point of view to make your life easier and to facilitate the expansion and growth of consciousness and the shifting and the changing of all energies with total ease. So I think I'm going to finish there because we've got to catch up with a little bit of time. So we finished the Australia segment on time with everybody. I think USA is coming in next. And I know Simone and Sarah wanted to sort of do a little outro with you guys and segment us into the European segment is what's going to be coming on next. So I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. How's it get better than this?